Perfect. Good evening or good night, Chairman and members of the members of the House Finance Committee. My name is Ramona Santos Torres. I am here with the strongest opposition to House Bill 8310. I am a parent, and I am also the Executive Director of Parents Leading for Educational Equity PLEA. We are a grassroots family advocacy organization that fights for the voices of parents of color to be at every decision-making space. You have heard a lot of data tonight, and you will continue to do so. And in my written testimony, I provided more data, but I'm just going to give you one data point that was so impactful to me personally as a parent. According to data that we have, the most recent from 2015 to 2016 school year, students as young as 11 years old have been arrested. In fact, students ages 11 to 13 account for about 19% of arrest. So I ask you tonight, is arresting 11 years old what school safety looks like? It is not. We have ample data that tells us that SROs disproportionately criminalize Black and brown students. So as we saw in Uvalde, Texas, the senseless deaths of 19 babies and 2 teachers were not prevented by police. Police stood by for over an hour. Parents got their babies out safer and quicker than police did. So why is it going back to a system or to a structure like police the solution when we again have data that tell us that police doesn't keep our children safe, doesn't keep our schools, communities safe? We know the harmful effects, long-lasting effects of police arrest in students. You've heard that before. You heard that in earlier testimony. But we know that students who are arrested, they have a less likelihood to graduate. They have a higher increase in possible arrest in the future, amongst many other things. So to conclude, I understand the fear. I'm a parent, and I hear from parents. We are all afraid. What I am inviting you to do is to, read the past, the Providence Alliance Student Safety Plan that has really a comprehensive set of strategies that are attainable, that are possible for us to do, rather than put in place systems that are harmful for our students. I will invite you again to engage with the community, to engage with students. Students have worked really hard on this plan, and I invite you to actually look at it, read it, and think of a better way. There is a better way to keep our students safe, and in that better way, police is not involved. Thank you so much, and I strongly encourage you to please reject House Bill 8310. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, I have a question. An 11 and 13-year-old was arrested. What were they arrested for?
So some of the common, data and arrest has been for disorderly conduct, and I believe, and we can email that to you. That report that was put together, research by the Past Coalition and Cycle, where they have more data on what those schools arrests have been, but they, commonly is for disorderly conduct.
Okay, so disorderly conduct, could that be like assaulting a teacher or something? I'm just asking the question. Could that be, because I'm trying to understand, like, what is the solution to that?
Right.
You want to get rid of school resource officers. I don't know if that is the correct policy or not, but I want to learn about it. So what do you do if a student assaults a teacher? Do you call the principal? Does a teacher, what is the policy? Did you call a social worker to come down and negotiate with that student?
Perhaps I can help with some of the statistical information, and it is available, and we'll leave the report with the clerk. But the majority of arrests, particularly of the youngest children in schools, are for things that would not otherwise be criminal conduct on the street. So disorderly conduct is usually words spoken, misbehaving or violating school rules. Assault is charged as assault. It's not charged as disorderly conduct, and it's not arrested as disorderly conduct. So it takes us back to the bad old days of incarcerating children for status offenses. These are things that would not otherwise be criminal conduct if they occurred outside the school setting.
Thank you for that clarification. That helps out a lot.
Thank you, Chairman. You mentioned that you are against, obviously, resource officers at your son's school. Earlier, it was talked about maybe tweaking this a little bit, where it would be an opt-in for schools. Would you be against all schools if they wanted to, if they chose to opt in? Would you be against other schools taking part in that?
Well, I think one of the reasons that this legislation is viewed so negatively by people you're going to hear from this evening is because it's a one-size-fits-all and mandates literally every public school, elementary, middle, and high in the state of Rhode Island, have 2 officers. That's not the status quo in the vast majority of public schools in Rhode Island. You've perhaps had a positive experience with an officer in your town, but that is not the status quo. It is not the norm in Rhode Island schools. This would be a huge culture shift for Rhode Island schools, mandating police officers in every school at every level, and it isn't written consistently, and it doesn't pay for that, as you've heard from the cities and towns. So to really make such a dramatic policy shift based on legislation that was introduced after June 1st in a General Assembly session seems like a very radical move to take.
And you're correct, the way it's written, it does say that, but we did hear testimony that there could be an opt-in option, and also that under 1,200, you wouldn't need 2 resource officers. So there, there are other options that are being talked about. I'm just wondering if there are any options that you would be good with, or you're just totally opposed to it altogether.
Well, I do oppose police officers in schools, but I will say that your question is a very good one, because actually the suggestion that you're interrogating is exactly the language of the existing law, which is that every community in Rhode Island currently has the option to engage the SROs, and there is a state funding mechanism. That's the very bill that's being amended here for SROs, up to 1 under schools with 1,200, up to 2 for schools above 1,200, and half of the funding is provided in the middle and high school level. So what you're describing, the optional approach, is exactly the existing law. So if you do nothing, you've got the optional plan.